What's up, Habibi? All right, everybody, it's time for another speaker breakdown featuring glittery pillows. But seriously, I was gonna finish up the Apple keynote one, but man, I think I proved my point. It was too hard to watch. Anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been making all the great comments in the YouTube videos. I really appreciate it. I love that you're finding these things helpful and useful, and thank you for letting me vent, because I'm telling you, man, I'm on a mission to end boring. And the biggest reason why people aren't getting better at public speaking isn't because there aren't a ton of people trying to teach you public speaking, is because most of them aren't good at public speaking or know nothing about it. They're just giving you information that they heard from someone else, that they heard from someone else, that they heard from someone else, which brings us to today's review. So I wanted to review this article from Big Think, and it's called Public Speaking, 7 Ways to Master Speechcraft. And this is your first warning sign. This is when someone says things like Speechcraft. When was the last time someone used that term in a conversation? I mean, what is Speechcraft? What is this, like 1852? Today we will learn Speechcraft. Is this the ancient Roman era where we have to speak in front of a Senate? No! I got to do a presentation on Pepsi in front of my second-year marketing class. Let me work on my Speechcraft. Ugh. By the way, this is one of the signs that you can tell when someone is giving you a bunch of theory. When someone is telling you something that they know nothing about. When someone is regurgitating information they heard from other sources, but they themselves do not embody and cannot demonstrate. So, for example, I took a look at this guy, very accomplished writer. Science, technology, bizarre anecdotes from history, esoteric odds and ends bleak of nervous, fascinating position, blah, 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 blah. He's a good writer, and he's a very interesting person, but didn't say public speaker or whatever it is you call that. So he's out of his realm, and it kind of comes out a little bit here, because here is the issue with this whole article. And we're going to review all the tips, but just like with all the other videos, what's the issue? Say it with me. You're all like, I have no idea, Yvonne. Listen, the issue is ideas without substance. Ideas without tactics. Generalities without execution. So let's take a look at the first one. So, 7 ways to master Speechcraft. Way number 1, turn your anxiety into excitement. Yes, because that's something we can all do. We can just decide that I'm super nervous, but no, this is a good thing. And what he essentially says in this is he says that there's numerous studies that show when you say terms like I'm excited rather than I am nervous, people perform better at karaoke. And then he translates that into speaking. And he said numerous studies, but there was no notes there, so I have no idea. So like my BS detector is a little kind of thing. Not to say that it doesn't work, but I mean, how do we practice that? How do we execute on just pretending? Do you honestly think that if you were super scared and nervous of a presentation and you just said, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited, that you would like somehow fool yourself? The truth is, and I've said this many times, you're always going to be nervous. And I think this tip is supposed to be saying, like, you're always going to be nervous, so try and convince yourself that it's excitement. But I mean, you can't lie to yourself. You can't lie about how you feel, and you can't lie about your physiology. Because nervousness has physiological effects, heart rate, etc. So the secret is, if you want to turn that nervous energy into excitement and communicate that excitement, I mean, you can try lying to yourself, or practice with nervousness so that you get used to being nervous, and then you can actually use that nervous energy in your speaking to come across excited. So here's what you do. Number 1, go outside and try even just whispering to yourself. Go like this. Take your phone and go like this. Read the first couple bullets and be like, hi everyone, welcome. Today I'd like to talk, and you're going to feel all these people like staring at you. Even if no one's around, you're going to feel like super self-conscious. You're going to replicate that nervousness. Keep doing that, and you're still going to be nervous and self-conscious, but you'll be able to translate that into the delivery because you'll become used to it. Second tip, be concise. Like no Here's the problem. We all think we're being concise. But do you tell us how to be concise? No. We talk about Oscar Wilde plays for some reason. Some people don't seem to suffer from a fear of speaking, but rather an excess love of it. This is true. We all like to talk, especially in social conversation. But in presentations, this doesn't apply. What happens is most of us will memorize all the things we have to say and regurgitate it. When asked what makes a great speech, John F. Kennedy's famous speechwriter Ted Sorensen gave much the same answer. And before I read the quote, let me ask you something. When is the next time you are going to give a presidential speech? Or the speech as the leader of a country? So right away, this advice is valid, but the example is completely unrealistic for 99.9% of the times we have to speak in front of people. Speechcraft! Speak from the heart, to the heart, directly, not too complicated. I'm not even going to keep going. I mean, you can read it. I mean, sure, if I was going to give an inspirational speech to inspire the troops or inspire a nation, but what if I'm doing a report on, Kleenex for my class on product distribution and value chain? How am I going to speak from the heart to the heart? And what does that have to do with being concise? Here's what you do instead. Listen, dear viewer, here's what you do. A, time yourself doing your speech. Cut the time by 40%. So if it was 5 minutes, now you do like 3.5 minutes. Cut the time again until it's like 2 minutes. Cut the time again until it's 1 minute. And whatever you have left over in that 1 minute, that is the key information you have, and that is all you really need to say. And that is how you practice being concise. Or I mean, if that's not up to you, you can also speak from the heart to the heart directly. Oh my God. All right. I'm sorry. Number 3. Follow Aristotle's advice. If we have to keep listening about shit that people did, and I'm sorry, I'm swearing this one, I just get so frustrated. If we have to keep getting the same old advice about Aristotle and Plato, we have to remember why this doesn't apply. 1, do you think your attention span is shorter or longer than it used to be? Do people talk in the same way that they did 4,000-5,000 years ago as they do now? Did Plato ever have to do a report with a 10-minute time limit? Did Aristotle ever have to facilitate a workshop on safety standards when coming back to work? But let's see what we can learn. Oh, and we got to go into Greek. Remember, to your audience, modes of persuasion. There are 3 ways to convince your audience of your point. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos refers to one's character or credibility. The reason that may or may not work is this. Listen, the truth is, if you've ever had to listen to a speech and they read off somebody's bio, you stopped listening. You waited for that to be over before you started listening. Really. So-and-so is a speaker here. He's done this. He's worked in this for... Nobody listens to bios. Unless you're like an Elon Musk kind of person or like a super famous person, then they care about your bio. But if you're just coming in as a speaker, or if you're just a regional manager and they're going to give you an introduction, no one cares. You've all been there too. People, their teachers, oh, let me tell you a little bit about myself. This is not why I came to this class. That's what you do. So I'm not sure about that one. But maybe the other 2 Greek words. Let's talk about pathos. Makes the audience feel something, whether it's hope, love, or fear. It's powerful. It is very true that emotions help to make decisions. So a good presentation does have an emotional component, but the thing that he's not telling you this is how do you make an emotional connection with an Excel sheet about market distribution and sales by region of your products. Aristotle? Mr. Davis? Anything? That's what I thought. And I'll tell you how. I will tell you how. But first, let me find this other Greek word there. Let's talk about this other Greek word. What's the other one? Logos. Appealing to logos is the practice of supplying facts and logical argument. Yes, because we all know that facts convince people. I mean, the truth is, if we're honest, the combination of the three could give you a convincing argument. If I'm not just being a dick, if I'm being honest, but you need to have all three of those elements within an argument. I did a quick thing. Go on Instagram, gang. Go on Instagram. I just published a pitch tip, and I talk about how a decision is made through logic and emotion, and a little strategy for you to get both of those things within 30 seconds. And it's on my reels on Instagram, so check it out. But here's a little thing that they're not telling you in terms of like how to be convincing. The way that you're really convincing is you have to pro and con whatever you say, whether it's an emotional argument or a factual, logical one. You have to demonstrate that you know why it works, but also communicate why it doesn't work, because then it appeals to the people who are skeptical. People love to be right, and if someone doesn't agree with you, if you can communicate that I also know exactly how you're thinking, then even if they still continue not to agree, they will listen more, because I also understand their point of view. It's like, for example, I was listening to a great speech about someone who used to be a homeopath, realized that homeopathy wasn't as legitimate as she was meant to believe, and then now she speaks about her experience. There are logical claims and emotional ones within that one presentation, but she talks about both. She says, here's what I learned, and here's what's actually right about what they're saying, and then here's where I learned that what they were incorrect about what they were saying. And because she does both sides, that is convincing. And by the way, if you ever want to convince people emotionally and you have to talk about a technical subject, all you have to do is give a first-person anecdote. I used to work in pharmaceutical sales, and we used to have to be like, how to really break the ice with someone and really argue about this high blood pressure medication. And like, we would come in with stats all the time and new study, and the doctors would, And then one time, I said, I'd be like, so listen, I was actually in a room where the doctor was there, and they just they didn't actually know how to properly abbreviate the drug, so they just used the generic name. Here's a cool abbreviation to help you remember. And the doctor was like, oh, okay, well, that's all I needed. That little first-person story was something I told other people as a best practice, and they're like, oh, I'm going to try that. So just put a first-person anecdote. That's how you make an emotional connection. It doesn't have to be that example, but I was doing this, and this happened. It's how you can make an emotional connection. Or, as Aristotle says, your pathos, baby. Check out my pathos. Pause. Yes, of course. How? Tell me how. Let's find out how. Oh, let's find out from Winston Churchill. In case you ever have to motivate a nation into a world war, before you speak, Humes. Oh, let's see who this is. James Humes, presidential speechwriter. Wow. Before you speak, lock your eyes on each of your soon-to-be listeners. Every second you wait will strengthen the impact of words. Stand, stare, and command your audience, and they will bend their ears to listen. Yes. If you're speaking to 40 people, stand and lock eyes with every single person in that room. Really? Now, Mr. Humes is right. Most people just jump into their presentation. Very few people start with silence. Start with 4 seconds of silence. That's your strategy. When someone introduces you and they all clap, just do this. And what I like to do is I pretend that I have a secret I'm going to tell them. And I don't lock eyes with people. What I do is I divide the room into like quarters, and I look at each quarter. I go like, I want to ask you all a question. So you see, I kind of try. It doesn't matter what order, but I counted to about 4. 1 and 2 and 3. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. That's if you really want to set the tone to be like super serious. If you're trying to hype up the crowd, that's a whole other issue. And if you want, put it in the comments, and I'll tell you how to hype up a crowd when you get introduced, okay? Speak with a natural rhythm. Yes, because we can just be like, yes, speak with a natural rhythm. That's the most useless advice on earth. Yes, of course, speak with a natural rhythm. But how? Oh my God. Oh, I gotta hold my glittery piddle for a minute. Breathe it out. Breathe it out. That's like saying breathe. Breathe normally. Oh, thank you. Wow. Let's see what they say. Speak with a natural rhythm. Widely regarded as one of the best orators of all time, Winston Churchill, in case you have to lead a nation into a world war. And I bet you anything no one's listened to a full Winston Churchill speech. You've heard excerpts of it. Probably this guy never did either. Churchill writes, the great influence of sound on the human brain is well known. The sentence of the orator when he appeals to his art to become long, rolling and sonorous. The peculiar balance of the phrases produces a cadence which resembles blank verse rather than prose. And that is all you need to know to understand that the way people used to speak and communicate does not apply anymore, because what the hell did that mean? If you want to practice having vocal variety so that you're not monotone, and what he's really trying to get at here, you can see it right here. It's difficult to listen to somebody who speaks in monotone. What he's trying to get at is don't speak in monotone. But what he's not telling you is how not to speak in monotone. Because when you're nervous, you kind of clench up and everything. Certainly the way you practice will help, but if you really want to not speak in monotone, here's what you do. Okay. There's a couple of variations. Number one is you have to give yourself time challenges. So in acting, they have a thing called an Italian run. And that is when you do your presentation as fast as possible with as little breath as possible. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'd like to present to you the 3 different ways that we can help to increase Pepsi's market share over the next 3 years while we are trying to grow in India. Yum Brands was first established in 1972. And you just got to go, okay? Then you do that 3 or 4 times. Do that 3 or 4 times, okay? Then you have a friend make you pause at certain points, but you don't know when. So you start your Italian run again, talking as fast as possible, but every time someone goes like this, or they'll be like, whatever, they'll clap, you gotta be like, clap again, and then you gotta keep going, clap. Every time you hear the clap or the hand goes up, you have to pause. That's the second one. The third way is if you're going to write your speech out, put commas in different places every time you practice the speech. So once, comma, upon a time, comma, I saw a hill. Once I saw a hill, comma, or once upon a time, comma, I saw a hill. You have to put the emphasis in different places, and the best way to do that is literally by drawing commas, because once you see the sentence with the comma, you will naturally want to pause there. So those are a couple of different strategies to make sure you're not monotone. The last one, and this is the super easy one if you have someone to practice with, is practice your presentation like this far away from someone. Make sure it's a significant other or something, or you got their approval. Then practice it this far away, then have them take 10 feet, then have them stand on the other side of the room. Each one of those practices, because of the different noise you'll have to make, will create a different delivery. Don't do one distance, do them all, because it's the variation, the practice of variation that will prevent the monotoneness. Oh my God, how many more of these? Okay, there's only 2 more, guys. There's only 2 more. Woo! Why did I do this to myself? Compare what is with what could be. In her TED Talk, CEO Nancy Duarte describes a hidden pattern she found in history's greatest speeches. Great speeches repeatedly describe the current reality and contrast it with the desired outcome, and then end with a call to action. Yeah, I like it. That's a good strategy. I actually think that's a really good strategy. I think what I would say is you're essentially doing like a pro and cons analysis, right? Pluses versus negatives. This is how we used to do it. This is how we should do it. In other words, you're creating a dichotomy, and speaking in dichotomies, love it. Before and afters, it has a great impact. Cost benefit is another way you could think of it. Cost benefit analysis are one of the best ways to get people really convinced, because once again, I'm not just arguing my argument. I'm saying here's the pros and here's the cons and here's the decision based on those pros and cons. It takes it out of opinion and it puts it into the realm of analysis and general truth. And also, by the way, in previous videos, it avoids reactance, because if you show the pros and cons and the audience hears the pros and cons, they feel like they have the ability to make a stronger decision on their own. And finally, the rule of 3. People like to hear things in groups of 3s. This is true. And you know what I've never done before? And maybe I should do some research into this. I've just never heard a good reason why. People just say 3s are good. But why? I mean, they're right. The only time that they're not right is sometimes, we feel like we have to do 3 options when we're doing a presentation, or we have to put things in 3s when there's only really 2 viable options, or sometimes there's 4, and we'll try and force them into 3s. That's when I don't agree with it. Because sometimes it forces you into this weird structure that doesn't apply to every situation. Should you put things in 3s? Yeah, if you have 3 things. But what if you only have 2 things? Put both of them with a cost benefit. Even if you do 3 things, each one should have a cost benefit. Let's see if there's any other insights in here. 3-part lists have an air of unity and completeness about them. I don't know why. He doesn't explain why. Whilst lists with 2 items tend to appear inadequate or incomplete. I don't agree with that. What if you're saying you're choosing between 2 items? Winston Churchill once said, of course, if you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again. Then hit it a 3rd time. A tremendous whack. Yeah, but he could have also said the point 4 or 5 or 6 times, and that would have been even more. In fact, in one of my courses, link down below, when I talk about public speaking, I talk about creating a goal opportunity statement, which is a 1-sentence summary of your presentation, and that should be repeated throughout your presentation. If your presentation is broken up into 7 parts, that goal opportunity should be in all 7 of them. Limiting yourself to 3 or artificially putting something in 3 without knowing what the context of the presentation is, I mean, the fact that you're saying it 3 times will make it better than saying it 1 time, but 3 is not a magic number. Repetition and the amount of times you repeat a key message is dictated by the length and structure of the presentation. My rule of thumb is, every time you go to a new section, repeat your key point. Done. Easy peasy. All right. Let's see what inspirational terms he leaves us with at the end. Public speaking can be a daunting task, but with these 7 tactics can improve your public speaking skill, thereby improving your confidence. After all, feeling confident in your abilities is a far better way to feel comfortable when in front of a microphone than imagining the audience in their underwear. This is very true, and I think it's a fun little ending. Again, a fun ending, another article with ideas we've all heard before from someone who doesn't know a lot about public speaking, repeating, regurgitating stuff, and thinking that it's new. And what you needed, sir, was just a couple of tactics. Stop going back to old cliches. I don't care what Aristotle, what Steve Jobs, what Martin Luther King, what John F. Kennedy, what Winston Churchill, I don't care what any of them said, because I am never going to be in that type of a speech. Give me practical advice, and then I will love you in the way that you love me. I'm just kidding. In the way that I love you. Anyway, so my friends, thank you so much for coming in and checking out this latest speaker breakdown. #and boring. Glittery pillow edition. I hope you're doing well, and make sure to check me out on Instagram, Public Speaking Lab, because I've been posting, and I'm gonna keep posting more reels, and I have a really big announcement coming out for the fall of 2021. In case you're watching it right in the moment. Okay.